Hey, this is PK. You're listening to the Matt Balaker podcast.
Today's guest is an amazing human being. I know this because he purchased a copy of Greg Geraldo, A Comedian Story, after we did a show together in Las Vegas. This guy is a regular at the top clubs in California and the country. He was the grand prize winner of the Uncle Clyde's Comedy Cup, and he was invited to the White House. Please welcome PK to the show. How you doing, PK?
Thanks, Matt. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, and I'm curious. You've done a lot of impressive things, but I don't know if we've had any guests so far who's had a White House invite. What's the story there?
So I started after college. My roommates in college were white, black, Latino. I was like the Asian guy. We literally looked like a army brochure that was trying to recruit all different ethnicities. I went to Occidental College, and we talked about everything. LA riots. It was very we're very close to this day. I always told them you guys open my Asian eyes. I didn't really see a lot of things before. And I would talk a lot about, my complaints with the Asian American community, and they were challenging me just instead of talking, do something. And so after college, I started this Asian American talent show because the stereotype is always Asians are just doctors, engineers, nerdy, asexual, just not viewed as creative. So right. I started this is long before YouTube, the year 2000. I started this Asian American talent show called Collaboration. And even within the Asian American community, it's very segmented. A lot of different communities don't like each other. So I brought the Asian American singers, dance crews, rappers, comedians, bands, put them all on stage together. And it just took off. It started small, but soon, it was all nonprofit, but I had it going annually in 14 cities. I grew a staff of volunteers. It was all non-paid volunteers. So they were all about just the cause. And I grew a staff from a few volunteers to 100 in LA alone. And then each city had 10 to 20 volunteers. And it just really took off, and then once all the YouTube stars blew up, it kind of faded. But that was a really a great, I don't know, part of my life that shaped, what I did.
Right. So, you said a lot of important things, but one thing that sticks out, PK, is the stereotype that Asians are asexual. What the continent has how many billions of people? I think that could be debunked pretty quickly.
Exactly.
Just look at the numbers, damn it.
That's what Tony Rock said is you guys don't have the biggest cars, but you have the most cars,
Well, so you created this nonprofit. It highlighted a lot of Asian American voices, but then how did it get the attention of the White House? A lot of people start clubs. Maybe they don't have the success yours did, but how did this kind of grow to getting a White House invite?
This is when Obama was in office. He wasn't there that day. I was sad, but because he's an Occidental alum. Apparently he smoked some weed at Occidental. I don't know if they still have this, but it's the White House Champion of Change, and they invite different community leaders. I don't know who submitted me, to be honest. Whoever did it, thank you. But someone submitted me, and then
it was me. Sorry, I didn't want to break. It was me. But go ahead,
Matt Balaker. Thank you. I've always been waiting. Some angel submitted me, and then I got the invite, and I was honored. It was crazy. I went into the White House, and you know what I was blown away. They show the front of the White House. That area in front is really small. Have you been there?
No, I've only seen it on TV.
You imagine in front, there's just going to be this huge area. It's just this tight little tiny road. And I guess all the cameras fit there for press conferences. That kind of tripped me out. And then the security is real heavy, which is crazy. But that was an amazing experience. Yeah.
So you have this diverse group of friends in college. You start this nonprofit. You're at the White House. But it didn't just start there. Where did you grow up? What was your upbringing like, PK?
I do have to say, I'll confess on the podcast, I did feel guilty being at the White House because even though I was doing a lot of community work, my friends took me to like my first rave, and so like I had tried ecstasy. I'm a late bloomer party. I'm a preacher's kid, so I had tried like all these drugs right before I went into the White House, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna ever talk about that until the Matt Balaker podcast.
We're breaking news here. Well, I don't think you were the first one to be under the influence at the White House, but I'm glad you came clean. So you're a preacher's kid. Yeah, that's a pretty unique. I guess you and Sam Kinison have that in common. How did your father's faith kind of influence your upbringing?
Yeah, so this is a crazy story. I have a hard time believing in supernatural miracles. I feel like all religions use that to use fear to get people to believe in their religion, like, oh, look at our miracles. But my dad told me this one story, the only time he ever cried in front of me. And, he passed away, but he said, during Korean War, he only heard like these missionaries came and he only heard about, Christianity one time. And then like these missionaries came North Korea during the Korean War. He got captured by North side, like the North Korean Soviet Union side, and then they got thrown into a ditch and they were about to get killed. And my dad's like this young guy, and he said he prayed like, God, if you get me out of here, I will serve you. And American soldiers rescued him out of that ditch. And so he kept his promise. He came to study in America, got a visa. Uh, he, with limited English, got a PhD and a master's in theology, Temple University, and then Philly. And then he started a church in LA with one family, and he grew it to 3,000 people. And I grew up in that church, really conservative Korean Presbyterian church. My dad used to like hit us out of love.
Sure.
He was that it hurts me more than it hurts you. I'm like, I don't know if it does. But I'm the last of five, and I grew up in a strict household. All my older brothers and sisters were virgins till marriage. Nobody believes me, but they were.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in that household, and I always saw the power of like a person with the microphone moving people, like whether it's to joy or tears or, church, whatever it is. But then I would, when my parents would go to sleep, I'd always sneak out and watch Johnny Carson Tonight Show. My friends were passing around the Eddie Murphy Delirious cassette tape, and I wasn't even allowed to listen to radio music, secular music. It was like bad music. So I hid this little cassette player and radio, and I would listen to it without my parents knowing. And that blew my mind. Johnny Carson, Eddie Murphy. I just was like, what? Like, you can do this? Like, just tell stories and jokes. That changed my life.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy is kind of like the gateway drug to for a lot of his comedy nerds. Like I remember, gosh, being really young, watching Raw, and I think he was like 19 or 20 when he did it, but at the time he seemed like this grown up, and I was like, he's saying this, and he's not getting in trouble. Like it was like the forbidden fruit, but in a way that like was making people happy and creating joy. So in a lot of ways, like comedy is very similar to what your father does. You're both making people happy. I mean, there's plenty of differences, but what did you see in his work ethic or his approach to writing sermons that influenced your comedy?
Well, I definitely don't have the discipline my dad had. I think I'm glad you asked that. I think about that all the time because he only came to one show before he passed. He was always like, why are you telling jokes? I paid so much for Occidental College, Um, and unannounced, him and my mom came to one of my ice house shows, and they were like super religious. And of course, I feel like God has a sense of humor. Every comic before me, it was all like 10-minute sets, was doing the dirtiest sets. Like, and he understands it all. Like the comic before me was like looking straight at him, my dad, like, do you believe in ghosts? How do you know a ghost isn't jerking off on your face right now? You wouldn't even know, And I'm like, why? Like, why is every comic so dirty to me? And so, of course, I do my cleanest set ever. And it meant a lot, like, because he passed away right after that. So, like, showing up for my kids' stuff, I always remember that moment because the next time I went to Ice House, man, I got really emotional and people were like, "Are you all right?" Like, I just was like doing my set like teary eyed. But yeah, I just feel his discipline. Immigrants. He didn't know English. Like he
Mhm.
learned English and got a PhD. Like so he just was all about studying while my mom worked graveyard shift. He said I don't think they're exaggerating. He said they rented a closet from another family for the first few months they lived in America, and they lived in a closet. Like they just slept there. They paid rent, and then he said they barely got by living off of rice and whatever for a year, and they just went from there and from all of that hard work to eventually buying a home in Burbank, California. I just all the respect to them. It's crazy.
Wow. I mean, my mom's an immigrant as well, and I kind of like think about how our lives are so different. It's like now we have time to like go online and complain about how rough our life is, but I've never worried about having food, or something like that. It's like sometimes it's like too much time is a detriment. Like I mean, what's your take on that? Like, what do you think fosters a good work ethic? I mean, we can't all be immigrants, we can't all be our parents, but what aspects of kind of what your parents went through would you want to instill in your kids?
Yeah, I would say that, I don't have very many regrets in life, but one thing is, my dad was right because he was like, you're like want to do so many things and you're good at a lot of things, but you got to focus on one thing. And I saw that book. I forgot the author, but the one thing, and I read it, and it's just like I really want to get my kids to just, of course, enjoy, be kids, enjoy everything, but like if I can find their passion in that one thing,
Mm-hmm.
to really support them in that, because I just wanted to do like everything. And my dad, he was just focused on that one thing, is like build a church and get as many people to know God. And so and for him, he believed like in order to get there, I need to learn as much as possible. So he like just focused like literally for 20 years on just studying before, from like age 20 to like 40, before he started church at age 40. So it's like that. It pains me because I'm like starting a talent show here. I've had so many different jobs, and that's another thing too, is like for the stand-up comedians that really know it, that's what you want to do when you're young. I just encourage them all to like, just as soon as you're done with school, whether it's high school or college, like just go for it right there. Because once you have a family and kids, so many responsibilities, and I literally feel like I'm in a minivan in the slow lane, and I've seen so many people I know personally. They're huge now, and I'm happy for them, but it also hurts.
I'm happy for them, but
You know how it's like
oh yeah, yeah.
it's hard.
No, that's always a hard thing because it's like I think in many ways comedy is a meritocracy, but it's not a pure meritocracy. I mean, it's like I ran a show for years at Red Rock, and we had some of the biggest comics. Like Rogan was there, Tom Segura, Christina, his wife. Like,
Wait,
uh,
which river? The Colorado or Vegas?
no, Hollywood. It's now like
Oh,
State
oh,
House. This was
oh,
like
got it.
so. Point being is like there were so many good comics. Bert Kreischer was there, and one differentiating fact. Like I'm trying to answer the question of like what makes someone a commercial success, and I guess the first answer is I don't know, but I think some of the attributes are like this really hard emphasis on marketing, like being willing to stick your neck out and push, and then also a grind. And then I think a lot of it is just network. I mean, a lot of it is just like, I don't know. Like we'd have shows with 6 people. I thought they were all great. Why is one of them selling out stadiums and another can barely make rent? I can't answer that. But I mean, I guess I'd say they're all doing what they are passionate about. But I mean, you've seen so many comics. You're a great comic yourself. What do you think are some of the factors to being a quote unquote commercial success?
Right now, social media, it's all about the people who are finding
That's
that
true.
one niche and then
Mhm.
consistently putting out content every day and then they blow up. I've seen it all around me. Again, it pains me, you know, because I have a day job and a weekend job and I do stand up at night, 3 kids. So I'm trying to figure out what is it like that I want to put out daily. And I've been thinking about this for like over a year and I hate myself that I haven't really found it, you know, but like some people it's skits, vlogs, you know, pranks, or, you know, some people do crowd work every day, like on stage and film it, and they just find their niche and you could just see them. They've taken off and they've blown up. So like and then I know all these like older veteran comics who are honestly way better stand-up comedians than all these younger people who are just putting out these little, you know, 30-second skits, but they just don't know how to do it, or they don't know how they can't figure out, like me, they can't figure out like how do I get this daily thing to happen, this flow, and it's just like all these people who know how to do it are taking over. By taking over, I mean like there's a limited amount of stage time. There's so many comedians now, partly because of, you know, Rogan and the podcast crews, and it's just so hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on something important, PK. It's like at the end of the day, a comedian's job is to sell beer and hot wings. You know, I mean, like we might like to think it's this higher calling. And in some aspects, I think that's true. But if you're doing it for a business, it's about getting butts and seats. And I think that's a tough reality. I mean, there's some like TikTok stars who can draw, you know, they can get thousands of people to come to their show, but do they have the craft? Do they have the skills to hold an audience for 45 minutes, an hour and a half? Maybe not. So, I mean, like, I think like you hit on something super important. Like on one hand, I got into stand-up comedy because I like the intimate feel of it. Like I don't want it all broadcast. I want it to be like a speakeasy. We're saying stuff that maybe we shouldn't, but it's just for us. And like when you break that fourth wall, so to speak, and you're broadcasting everything online. I mean, I'm not saying this is good advice. I'm just saying that, like, to me, it kind of waters it down. But like, there's always going to be those people that can draw versus the ones that are truly talented. And I guess the masters have both. There's not really a question there. That was just kind of a rant.
No, the masters definitely do have both. And that's one thing I have lacked, because I've always just focused more like on material. And then I realized, wow, like I haven't worked on the crowd work game. And like, you know, my boys take Taekwondo and they always come home and they're like, my friends say jujitsu is the best. And I'm like, it is better. And they're like, well, why you put us in Taekwondo? And I'm like, well, because it's right up the street and jujitsu is like 15 minutes away. But it's like that other muscle. And it's just, I remember Seinfeld says like, everything you do, you'll use later. Or that Steve Jobs speech, like you can connect the dots backwards, but not forwards, is like, it's like all those comedians that were just working on that crowd work. Once the social media game popped up, they knew how to, you know, utilize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's you know, it's one of those things you have to balance the business aspect of it versus like what do you want in your soul, like what do you get from it? And obviously we're both fans, PK, of Greg Geraldo, and I kind of wonder. I mean, I'm sure he'd be fine. Thank you for the plug. In today's climate, but even in the 90s and early 2000s, he was not a marketer. Like he would go on Twitter occasionally to like say when his show was, but that was not his strong suit. His strong suit was getting on stage and making people laugh. And I think he was one of the best, if not the best, you know, to do it in the last several decades. What was it about Geraldo that made you a fan of his?
First of all, props to you, Matt. This is amazing. I met you in the green room at the LA Comedy Club at the Stratosphere. And I was like, oh man, I love Greg Geraldo. Like, you know, who wrote that? And you're like, I did. I was like, dude, that is so gangsta. I was like, what? This is your book? So thank you. When you autographed it for me. Thank you. So, you know, Greg Geraldo, obviously huge fan of the roasts, and I would watch his material, and, you know, he's a beast, but also that one interaction with Dennis Leary, I've seen that like 10 times. He's just fearless. He's also an intellectual, you know, and then his work ethic, you know, I'm sure he just writes all the time and challenges me like, I need to write way more. But he just has that, like, he doesn't care. He'll just go at you, but when I tried for Last Comic Standing, my manager at the time got me the where you don't have to like pitch a tent and wait all day. Like I just waited an hour and you get like 2 minutes, and then there are three judges, and then Greg was one of them. The female judge, I don't want to say her name, but
Okay.
she was a total bitch to this day, because I had introduced her at the Laugh Factory multiple times, but I guess she's trying to be the Simon Cowell. And I did one of my best bits, and it's just like a short 2 minute bit, which has gotten like loud applause, whatever. And I was really nervous because we'll see what Greg Geraldo is going to say, and he goes, "You have a lot of potential." It wasn't anything crazy, but just to hear that from him was everything. And then right after him, the female judge, I mean, people can look it up, I guess, that year. But she looks at him, she goes, "Really?" And I was shocked. Like, I don't know if she's joking. I guess she's trying to get some shock value and be edit. And then that was it. And then they didn't put me through Last Comic Standing when a lot of the other comedians I had been performing with, they got through it. I was upset, but then I always was very like thankful to Greg.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you shared that, because while researching the book, talked to lots of people, and many of them were auditioning for Last Comic Standing, and several of them said stuff like you did. Like he was genuine, and I think he probably didn't realize as much as the others that it was a TV show first. He was there like kind of as an advocate for the comedy community, but a lot of people, PK, said that once the cameras were off, he would still talk to them about their set, or like ask them where they're performing. You just kind of like treat them like you should, as peers. And there wasn't this pretense, but it also kind of speaks to the nature of show business at the time. Like maybe that's why, or partly why, he wasn't such a big television star, because he didn't play the game like that. You kind of get more attention, like you're saying, if you're a Simon Cowell, or if you're this lightning rod, you don't get a lot of attention if you're a connector and if you're nice to people.
Yeah, I feel like he wouldn't be like one of those people all up on his own social media. He just really focuses on the art form, hit the writing. And I don't know, like people don't think those things matter, but those little interactions, when you look up to someone, they matter. And I have met my other comedy heroes who are not nice.
Mm-hmm.
They say don't be your heroes, and
right.
That messed me up. And maybe they're just having a bad day. They weren't friendly, but I'm talking about like I've seen their specials repeatedly, and I went up to them like, "I'm a big fan," and they were like, "Okay," and like kind of like annoyed. It just you just feel like you feel
they're
stupid.
looking for the 23-year-old girl behind you, and they don't give a shit about what you're saying.
Exactly, and so those things matter, and I'm always thankful. And so I do need to read this film, but much respect to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, another thing we have in common is we're both dads. You have 3 kids, so you're beating me. Once you became a father, how did that alter your comedy trajectory?
Oh man. Can we curse on here? No. Yeah, it fucked me up. Like it really made it difficult. I mean, I love my kids. I have 15-year-old boy. 15-year-old boy, 12-year-old girl, and a 9-year-old boy. So they're older now. I mean, my oldest is going to go to college in a few years. So, but it put a big strain, stress on our marriage. I've been married for 17 years.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you. Financially, it wasn't like I was balling. I was, I was making a teacher's salary doing this talent show thing. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I need to get a real job. I started selling solar. Hated it. And I wasn't making much money, but it was just like, okay, it's just like this. It's just so much stress and just living check to check, and just there's never enough money. And then we had another one because we didn't want the first one to be alone. It's like,
yeah.
And then the third one wasn't planned, and that
how'd this happen? Yeah.
Yeah, and it just rocked us. I mean, we're very lucky to still be married. No, really, like we went through the fire, and I do feel like a lot of couples are like this too. I've talked to a lot of friends like sometimes it's just you're just hanging on to each other because the kids, you're like, I don't think we can do this on our own, and that helps you get through it. And just to keep it real, like I have a lot of, it's sad, but I have a lot of friends. As soon as they went to college, their parents divorced, so their parents were just kind of staying together for them.
Right.
That was really crazy, like finding that out. And then now, like, we're lucky, but I understand. Like, it's my wife and I have been through the fight. It's just that stress of just trying to, raise little human beings, but then also not relieving your stress on them. But then on the same time, it's like I feel like, wow, like, I used to joke when they were babies. I used to go, oh, come here, my little dream killers, and hold them. But I mean, you can't use them as an excuse. But then all my friends that didn't have kids, I would just literally just see them passing by one after another, just blow up, blow up. So it's that part of it.
Yeah, I mean, to do a weekend when you're single or just don't have kids is not a big deal. Like you can just get in your car, fly or wherever. But when you have kids, there's like football practice, piano, whatever it is, they have to eat. Then you have to like run it by your wife. I mean, there's all these extra like levels and steps and just procedures that you don't have. And like on one hand, I think it improves your drive, but I don't necessarily think comedy is the greatest target, in terms of like financial stability or even mental health. So with that in mind, why do we still do this, PK? Why do we do this?
I love the joy when strangers laugh, because we've had friends come and they do their, they might be genuinely laughing, they might not be, but and I've hung out with friends where I'm like in a really goofy mood, but it's like, just like sometimes everybody's going through like a lot of pain, and you don't know, and you can kind of see like you've helped them like make their day a little bit better. That sounds corny, but really though, like it's helped. Comedies saved me so many times. It's like it's everything. I think I've like mentally received healing, emotional healing from comedy. Like I always said, like pastors always say what you're supposed to say, but comedians say what everybody's thinking, but we're not supposed to say, and like they always kept it more real. And so I just love that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a ham. I love being center of attention. I love that high of it. I have tried drugs. I prefer the high of comedy more even. It's like almost as good as sex, I think, or sometimes even better, which is crazy now that I'm married. Jeez. But just like that oh, and then just like the high of like, when you have like, you can kind of grade. Oh, I talked to Barry Katz, the big manager, and he's like, he goes, well, write out all your bits and grade them. And I'm like, all right, I'm Asian, I can do that. And then I just was like,
straight A's.
Yeah. Yeah, but like we both know, like, by the way, you're hilarious. I saw your stand up, but
Thank you.
like when you walk up, when you come up with like your A bits, and then there's like those B ones you could kind of like, and then there's C ones where you do them, but you're still like,
right.
Gosh, shit. Like I gotta fix it. But like when you string a whole bunch of A's together, like that's like my friends are always like, well, you should come golfing with us. I'm like, no, dude, like I would much rather hang out at the comedy club with comics any day over all my friends that, they go golfing on the weekends,
Right. Well, you've convinced me to keep at it for another 25 years. And yeah, no, I mean, I think, in my point of view, like I know I'll never stop, I just, because when I've taken breaks, it's never been more than a few weeks. It's like, I'm more upset that I'm not doing comedy sometimes and even happy that I am doing it. It's like an addiction, but
it's definitely an addiction.
It's also like, and I'll grant you that I'll firmly say it's an addiction, but to spin it more positively and to kind of bring your father into it, I think it's also a vocation. It's sort of like, if it's in you, it's you're doing a disservice to yourself and your family if you pretend it's not. So it's I view it as, how can I live a healthy life with this? And for a lot of the reasons you're talking about, I mean, I'm in my 40s, and like I loved basketball as a kid. You can't play basketball competitively into your 40s. You can do stand up, God willing, till you die. And it's like it's so nice to have like a stressful day, or like getting a you're pissed that something's happening at home, and then you make a joke out of it, and you make some stranger chuckle, and it's sad, but I don't know if it's sad, but it's crazy like how much of an impact that can have on my well-being. And I think you share the same thing. It's like, all right, I have this outlet that a lot of people don't, and I think that's one of the beautiful things about live entertainment. It's like it's so cathartic to just get up there and like kind of open your heart, good or bad, and just sort of let it out.
It is very cathartic. I grew up with, friends, and like now I grow up, I realize, maybe not all of them meant it maliciously. They're just being kids. But, I had the kids doing this to me all the time. So I always felt like, oh, like
Mm-hmm.
Chinese, Japanese. And so like as a kid, you always feel me fun. And I learned how to like do comedy at school to like,
Right.
back them off. So the first time I saw, I think I was like 18. I went with a friend, Laugh Factory, and then I saw Bobby Lee. And then, he was doing this whole wild, took his shirt off. I was laughing so hard, I almost fell off my chair. But for me, it was just like, oh, there's an Asian guy doing it, and he's hilarious. And now I know him. He actually follows me on Instagram. Like, even
Mm-hmm.
those things, like, I love, like, I kind of take it right now as like, I mean, because I'm a bench warmer, like in like, basketball. I love basketball too, or baseball. Like, I'm a bench warmer in the league. I'm not a starter, but at least like I'm in the league. Like
Right.
I'm putting myself out there, and I've bombed so many times, and I've driven home in complete silence after bombing like many times. Like that feeling a lot of people don't understand because they're too afraid to put themselves out there. But I feel like we're in the league.
Right.
I just need to figure out how to get off the bench. And yeah. By the way, who's your team? I'm a huge sports fan.
But Lakers,
Okay.
they're my basketball team. But I also I went to UCLA, so I root for a lot
Oh,
of the Bruins. Um,
right on.
Probably Luke Richard Mbamute is one of my favorites, just because he was like did the dirty work. But how about you? Who's your team?
So, all my friends are Laker fans, LA. But
Yeah.
in high school, my parents transferred me um from Burbank High because they didn't really like my Korean friends. There were only like four of us, I guess, kind of getting in some trouble.
Mhm.
They transferred me to Village Christian, which is a kindergarten through 12th school, and I didn't know anybody there.
Oh God.
Um, so the first, I'm pretty social, but the first few months I couldn't fit, and I was literally eating lunch alone, and I was just reading the sports page,
Hmm.
and I had this $1,000 Volkswagen Golf as a piece of crap, and I would drive to the sports arena, $8 ticket to watch the Clippers, and then I would walk all the way to the front. Like the ushers didn't even stop you; it was so empty. The fans were talking to the players. It was so empty. Like
You're shooting baskets at halftime with the players.
yeah, no, I remember like they were yelling. It was like Pooh Richards. They're like, "Hey, Pooh," and Pooh's like, "What's up?" I was like, "What is going on?" But they just became my team because they were like the worst. They
Sure.
sucked. Nobody believed in them, and I thought I was a loner at the school. And I just felt like, wow, this team captures how I feel right now. So ever since then, I've been a fan, and they've choked for 30 years. So
Well,
much
now
pain.
they're one of the odds-on favorites to win the championship, PK. So, like you, like you'll be hanging a banner soon. You just got to get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard with you, or maybe you're the Kawhi Leonard. I think that's
Uh, I've heard that many times during the Lob City days, the Elton Brand days. We just keep choking.
Elton Brand was amazing. I think he's underrated. Like he was a 20 and 10 stalwart. Like that
He's
guy,
a,
you could just dial him in for 20 and 10.
he's on the Mount Rushmore for great boring players with Tim Duncan.
Tim Duncan's the king.
Tim Duncan's the ultimate, and then Elton Brand. They're just like so boring. They
Yeah,
just put the ball in the hoop.
John Stockton is pretty.
That's hilarious.
Well, I could talk to you for days, so we'll have to have you back. But um, I'm curious, what what have you done professionally, PK, that you're most proud of?
Professionally, I mean, to be honest, that Asian talent show collaboration, I'm really proud. Like I told my wife, hey, if I die, I want that on my grave. Like he helped start the show because I've had so many young people go, hey, this really gave me a lot of confidence. Like I've literally had emails from like Asian kids who are visiting LA from Oklahoma, Nebraska. They're like, hey, I'm the only Asian kid in my whole school. Like this show changed my life. Like I didn't know there were Asian rappers and bands and comedians and
Mm-hmm.
so you know, it's just like there's something about it when you see someone with your ethnicity, like you're like, oh wow, like it just makes you believe, you know, more. You could actually do it. And so that show, and then also uh I've opened for some pretty heavy hitters like Joe Coy, like maybe like 20 times, some rock star shows. I know he's been through the fire recently, but and then like just at Laugh Factory, I was hosting for 20 years at Hollywood, and so I brought up everybody. Everybody drops in. Like I
Mm-hmm.
brought up Chris Rock, Dane Cook, Chris D'Elia, uh, you know, every controversial comic that's ever existed. You know, like I'm friends with Tiffany Haddish, like, and then I've been with so many comedians that have like blown up. I feel like I'm not close with them, but like I know them and they're like they know me, like, hey PK, and just that, like I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I'm no one, but like you know, like I'm saying, like I'm in the league though, like they know who I am, like, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I know you. So just the fact that I'm there as a married dad of three, like I always tell my single comedian friends who decided not to get married, not to have kids, like they're in their 40s, you know, mid
Mm-hmm.
40s like me. Like, hey, bro, don't let me pass you up, bro. Because if I pass you with three kids, like, you know, there's no excuse, man. Like,
That's
because they,
pathetic. Yeah.
yeah, they have no idea how busy it is. Like, I almost slapped one of my friends because he was like, "No, I understand how busy it is because I have two dogs." I was like, I was like, dude, if you say that again, I'm gonna slap you, bro. You have two dogs. You can't just leave your two babies at home. Like, you can leave dogs at home.
Right. Well,
Like,
well, this is a perfect time to interject a Greg Geraldo joke. He said, "No one has a dog because you're too drunk to pull out." So it's a
so true. Oh my God.
dogs and kids are very different people.
Ah, facts.
Well, I think you're like maybe Ken Norman, Pooh Richardson. You're one of the Clipper legends that's going to be
Oh,
You're going to be hanging a
oh,
banner soon. Um,
oh, you
but
know, you're an OG.
oh
Danny
yeah,
Manning, Ken
Dan,
Norman, General Gary Grant,
I saw Danny
Stan,
Manning
Stanley Roberts, Kiki
his
Vandal.
first game to drop some Clipper.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
because I grew up in San Diego. My dad hated the Lakers. He was like a Celtics or Knicks fan. Like he was from the East Coast, and I think I liked him just to rebel. I was a middle child, but periodically we would drive, to go to the games, like during the week because you get them for like $8 or whatever.
Yep.
And it was like you were saying, it was you could actually see the players. It was very very different than even now. Like it was probably closer to a college atmosphere, but when you're like 8 years old or whatever, it's awesome. You get to like shake hands, like get autographs. It was really fun. Um, but I'm curious, PK, whether it's entertainment or really any way you want to answer it, what are you most optimistic about?
What am I most optimistic about? I would say that I am going to put out another special. I put out a 1 hour special. This was really disheartening. Um, and then it was with this group called Comedy Invasion. Big mistake. Don't ever do that. Don't join a group when you put out a special. Just go on your own. Because it was like they're funding it, and then they put like six of us together, six 1 hour specials, and then they bundled it and put it on Hulu, but then it was just buried. And then it moved to Amazon Prime. It didn't change my life 1%. Like it literally would have been the same. I probably would have gotten more traction just uploading to YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but now those bits are like older, and I'm like, coming up with new stuff. So I'm just like really excited to put you know, another like special or more material out there, and then just see where it goes. Like I'm friends with Fahim Anwar, Fahim, and I think he's one of the best. And the way he just put it on YouTube, I'm not as good as him, but I'm just excited for that because I know that I can hang. Like I know I have self-awareness. I'm not like one of the greats here, but like opening for a lot of the big comics in some of these big venues, like I have felt those rock star like applauses where like you have to like wait to tell your next show, and it's like that feeling. I long for that. I've been doing a lot of small shows lately, but I'm just excited to put that out there. And then also, as my kids grow, to have a little more free time. My oldest is about to drive next year, so right now I do all the drop off and pickups at 3 different locations, and then take them to all their after school stuff. And I live in a place I call TMC, Tiger Mom Central. So it's like every kid's doing everything. And then you think you're not going to get caught up, but you get caught up, So, I mean, like, sorry, like normally, you saw me at the club, like, I'm like, let's, hey, but during the week, you know how it is. It's just survival mode. Like my motto in life is dream big.
100%.
Yeah, but right now it's to survive.
Dream big, but survive.
Yeah,
Words exactly. To live by. So to the hundreds of millions of people who are tuning in right now, where can we funnel them, PK? Where can they learn more about you, your next shows, what you're up to?
At PK Comedy on IG. I pretty much post everything on there, and pkcomedy.com. I have a lot of my online bits on there. They're older, but some of them have like millions of views. So if you could check it out. Yeah.
Cool. Well, love to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Matt, thank you so much, man. You're a true pro. Appreciate you. I will read this. You're the man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Matt Balaker podcast. To learn more, please check out mattbalaker.com and encourage your friends to like, subscribe, and share. Really appreciate it.